Welcome to the Tarot Tapestry, a weaving of self-discovery, where three tarot mavens put their heads and hearts together to offer their wisdom and insights about the tarot. We hope that you find this helpful in your personal journey to self-discovery and growth.
Join us as we explore ways to use tarot for self-reflection and self-correction.
Together, we'll discover new ways to use tarot to weave threads of understanding into the tapestry of your life. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tarot Tapestry. And today I am joined by Angie, and we will be talking about the kings of the court cards. And I know a couple of episodes ago, we did the queens, and I did that episode with Linda. And I was talking about how I have been like forming my own, I guess, interpretation of the court cards, specifically with the queens and the kings. And I started to look at it as the king and the queen being parts of a whole, and how the two energies work together in our everyday lives to help us like maintain balance in our life. And I really liked looking at it that way because it really did give me just a better understanding of it, of them, of both energies, right? And I started to think about and started to do some research on this like masculine principle and feminine principle. And Linda and I did talk a little bit about that in that Queens episode. But I really enjoyed looking at them that way and just thinking about how the energies are different, but when you combine them together, they can make a very, very powerful energy and just put more power back, give us the power back in order to make decisions and just live a life that is fuller for ourselves.
Yeah, I like that. I look at feminine and masculine energy. It doesn't have anything to do with gender. A masculine energy, it to me is more like an outward. It pushes. It's like the action of creation, right? And the divine feminine energy is more receptive. And I don't mean that. Some people think that means passive. I don't mean passive. It's what that energy is made for, to grow and sustain what is created. So yeah, together they make everything, really. So
Yeah, it does. And I really like that. And I'll just give like just like a quick recap of the kind of energy that I thought about the queens, because it kind of helps to understand what I'll say about the kings. And like you had said, it is a receptive energy. You can also look at it as the yin and also lunar energy, right? So in the tarot, the lunar energy is considered a very feminine energy, and the masculine energy is the masculine principle relates to like the solar energy or like yang. And I really liked thinking about the feminine energy as like being highly intuitive, right? You are kind of like regulating your emotions. You have a good sense of your emotions and how to regulate them. It's very nurturing energy. It's a very creative energy, like you were saying, an energy that like just flows well. It helps you to kind of just go with the flow and make sure that things are unfolding in a way that's going to benefit you. And then also this idea of using like your senses in order to receive from the outside world and bring that internal, right? It's like bringing the things that are happening externally, bringing it inside, working on that, right? And then being able to push it out, which is where like the kings come in. And you had said that, Angie, right? It's like an outward energy. So the queens kind of take everything in. We absorb it. We use our intuition, our creativity. We, start to think about how can I bring this out into the world? And then you get that masculine principle or that king's energy where it's like, okay, now it's time to take action. Now it's time for me to use more of that active energy to make sure that, I'm using like, my logic and I'm planning things out and I have a structure and I kind of know what I'm going to do to make this goal that I have or to bring this creative idea that I have to fruition. It's like all of that action and energy that goes into kind of getting it done.
Yeah, and the yin principles, at least for me, are easier to maintain long term. The yang, the creative thing, that's like the initial burst, and like you said, all that planning and directing and setting your course, and then you kind of step into the cycle when once you've created something and you want to sustain it and keep it going for a long time. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every morning when you wake up. It's more of the like the spark, the initial idea plus the strategy of how you're going to make it happen.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
absolutely. And when you think about the king and the queens, they're that, excuse me, that like mature energy, right? That wise energy, because when you think of a king, you think of somebody who's been around for quite some time, who has experienced the world and has gained, some knowledge and experience and wisdom and can, just handle things in a more mature way than, maybe the knight or the page might.
mhm.
So I love that idea of that wise, mature, very mature energy, and how when you do use that kind of mature energy, or when you receive it, or when you have it, how it really does make how you handle situations um, just so much different than if you handled a situation as like a knight or a page.
Also the different duties, right? For pages are pretty much do what they're asked to do. They don't have a whole
Mhm.
lot of autonomy because they're just learning the ropes. Knights have more power behind them, right? Because they've got their war horse and their armor and their weapons and, all of this training, but they still have to do what the king and the queen ask them to do. They don't just run off willy-nilly. I mean, I guess they could, and then they could still call themselves a knight, but, you know, what's a knight without like patrons, I guess. Um, and when you're the queen, or the king, you have to deal with all of the problems. You're the one who has to decide what's going to be done about them. Like the king might say, yes, we're going to attack or we're going to defend, and the queen might say, yes, we're going to plant this year, or no, we're going to plant something different to get everyone through the winter. You know, it's not all, gosh, it's it's a broader focus, I guess. Like they
Mhm.
have more oversight and a bigger field of influence
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
the others.
Absolutely. And it's like, and I know that in some tarot decks they may refer to the king as the father, the queen as the mother, and then the page and the knight as children. And if you think about a family dynamics,
Hmm.
you think about that, right? The king and the queen, the mom and the dad, they're in charge of, like you said, everything, right? They have to take care of the family and all the responsibilities that, go into that. Whereas the knight and the page, they're kind of just, they're finding their way, but they still have rules, right? You still have rules and you still have to follow them
Yeah,
and you have to listen to mom and dad. And,
do your homework and then
so
clean up your dishes and all of that. But mom and dad have to worry that the bills are going to get paid and that you get to the dentist and the eye doctor and the regular doctor and that you're getting good grades and you're not being a jerk at school or
yeah.
all of that. So
And it's
I
their job too. Like when you think
yeah.
about a mom and a dad, like if you think about the mom as the feminine energy, and not that, moms are feminine energy, but like I had mentioned earlier, we want to look at both of those energies as working together to create a whole. So the mom will have both energies and the dad will have both
Oh
energies.
yeah.
Um, And the idea that, it takes a lot of like structure, a lot of planning, a lot of strategy, a lot of logical thinking and clarity and using your mind to make things work, as well as that nurturing side, right? That side where, okay, are you feeling okay? Is everything going all right? Are you listening to what your insides are really saying? Are you following your dreams? Are you doing this? Like, it's like a back and forth motion. It's like it has to flow. It has to like they have to like intertwine one
Yeah.
another in order to make things run smoothly.
Well, I'm glad you made that point that everybody, like I am a woman, I identify as a woman, and I have feminine and masculine energy. That is the way humans are, you know. And it's just a way of, active and receptive. Active, I don't like saying active and passive because there's nothing passive about uh, you know, everyday routines and making sure things get done in a timely manner and all of these things that aren't necessarily like super creative or generative in any, big noticeable way, but they're all things that if they stopped, everything would start to suck in short order,
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and everybody has to do that in their lives all of the time for themselves. So today we are talking about the kings in the tarot deck. And like we're saying, that is like the masculinized sort of creative mastery of their elemental realms, right? The King of Wands is I always think of them as like they would be a really great they would be one of those leaders who puts art and uh, music and creation and following, your
Mhm.
passion kind of at a really high priority in the society that they would want to build. And those would be the kinds of things that they would fight for, like their right to be creative and follow their passions and not be uh, buttonholed into things that that make them, that don't make them happy. And with you're talking about the Queen of Wands, she's also very creative and stuff, but she's more like kind of, I think, on like a more sensual sort of
Mhm.
homey, I guess, level, cozy. Um, but um, but she wants that for everybody. Like that's the kind of kingdom she wants to create, is one where everyone is safe and warm and free to express themselves however they feel called to authentically be just whoever they are. Like that's the kingdom I want to live in. Is the kingdom
Don't
of
we all,
Wands.
Angie?
Yeah.
I was thinking for the King of Wands, I love that energy. And I was thinking um about like a natural born leader, right? Or like an entrepreneur, somebody who has like this vision and is going to set out to accomplish that vision, and is just optimistic about it. Like somebody who goes out to achieve a goal, comes across these obstacles, and doesn't like back down from them. They have this sense of this courageous nature that just lets them move forward and doesn't allow um, like I said, obstacles to kind of stop them in their tracks and maybe say, oh, maybe I don't want to go there. They keep going. Um, and they're like wise, right? Experience, because that's what kings are. And then I was also thinking about if like more of, and I was also thinking, I was trying to find people in my family who, when I saw the particular king, to say, "Ooh, who does that remind me of?" And for this particular king, it reminds me of my brother, who is an Aries. So he's very, very fiery to begin with. But he is one of those people, like he's very, very optimistic. He always has a very positive outlooks on things. He's a go-getter. He likes to move, move, move. It's like action, action, action. Let's take action. And And you had mentioned this many times, Angie, when we talk about the King of Wands, is that you delegate to people, right? You don't take on all of that responsibility. And he's very good at saying, okay, we have, this thing I want to do. So what is your part going to be? What is your part going to be? What is your part going to be? And you kind of put all those parts together, and now you have like a whole, and they get to sit back and kind of look out at everything and say, oh, wow, you know what? I did this, or we did this. And then if you think of the more shadowy side to them, they're freaking like arrogant,
Yeah, like they
obnoxious,
can be really impulsive, very
Yeah,
impulsive or
very much so.
pushy or yeah, like
Hmm.
very I'm the greatest thing that's ever happened to anybody ever. Um, yeah, left when they let themselves off the hook and when they don't have that haven't really gotten to that part of maturity where they can temper their own uh impulses to always just like, yeah, and go and change directions and expect everyone to keep up. And yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, like when you're kind of that shadowy part, that balance between that feminine energy and that masculine energy is not balanced, right? Maybe there's just way more of that masculine active energy, and maybe you need to kind of go back and see, let me do some inner work here. Let me kind of come back to me on the
Mhm.
inside and take a chill and let me look at
Yeah.
things, and kind of bring myself back into balance and get off of my high horse and come back down to reality type of
Right.
thing. Yeah.
So, okay. And then the King of Cups is kind of the opposite. Not that, uh, more, I think the King of Cups energy is more, introspective. It's more about mastering your own emotions and your own, like meeting your own spooky parts, your own shadows, and being very calm and compassionate about it, but also being very firm in that, no, we're going to set some boundaries. Two, everybody's going to feel their feelings and everybody's going to get to express them fully, but nobody gets to get it on everybody else. You know what I mean? And in the reverse of that, in the shadowy part of that, that can be somebody who is just uh, very controlling emotionally, like
Mm.
or they're so controlled, quote unquote, emotionally that they don't express emotion and they don't expect anyone, they don't want anyone else to either. That can go either way. It's
Oh, that
good.
reminds me too of somebody who like gaslights.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an emotional manipulation type of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, somebody who's really manipulative and probably very good at reading other people's emotions
Hmm.
as well as their own, because you got to be good at that to be able to get away with that shit
Yeah, and it
for
reminds me too
long
of
term.
almost like a bully, right? Like bullies
Hmm.
read people and
Hmm.
they see and can feel like who can I manipulate emotionally, so that I can, you know, take out my own issues
Right.
on them.
Without
Yeah,
having to
yeah.
deal with them myself. Well, they're also very good at making everything everyone else's fault all the
Mm.
time. In that.
That is gaslighting. There you
Mhm.
go. It's
Yep.
everybody else's fault. I cannot hold accountability for myself. Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think the King of Swords gets kind of a bad rap because the swords you hear Queen and King of Swords are always very unemotional and like pushy and mean. And I guess that, yeah, they could be. That's like in my opinion, the more shadowed aspect of those personalities in the deck. But I think the King of Swords he wants to know how you feel. It's important to him to know how you feel, but he's not going to make decisions just to protect your feelings. He's got to make decisions that come from a place of logic. What kind of resources do we have? What do we need? Yeah, it might feel good to not be responsible right now today, but if we're not responsible today, are we going to have food next week? He's got to think of all of those things, and it's not that he wants to hurt anybody's feelings. It's just that feelings are not the most important thing right now. The most important thing right now, he's got a sword. He's probably really good at defending what is his. And, in the reversed, whacking people who can't defend themselves with that big sword of his, if he's not, like you said, if he's not being a mature king, if he's being a chaos goblin king.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the King of Cups. Like the King of Cups, like my dad reminds me of the King of Cups. Actually, no, I'm so sorry. My dad is the King of Pentacles. I don't have a person yet that's a male figure that reminds me of the King of Cups. But that being said, I love the King of Cups. I, and in the deck that I'm using today, it's the Light Seers Tarot. And, he is like sitting in the water, with this bowl that he's touching and I guess making sound and having that resonance. And then he's got the fish and a sailboat behind him with some light shining from behind his head in the background. And it's just such a peaceful, calm picture. Like when I look at it, I can see somebody who's very, very comfortable in their skin. They're comfortable, they know who they are, they know what they want. They understand that you in order to make something happen, you have to forge and develop relationship with people, true relationships with people. And when you are making or when you are starting a relationship, it has to be a two-way street. Like you have to give, there's a giving and a taking, and there's an understanding. There's this idea of like listening to when people are talking and the decisions that you're making are benefiting as many people as you can. And we know that sometimes you make decisions and some people will lose because
Mhm.
that's just kind of how life is, but you do the best that you can, to take as much um that's around you into account, when you're doing it. And it's the person that I think you mentioned it, Angie, that will sit there and listen to like your side and how you feel and what you think, and take that into consideration as decisions are being made. Um, and then for the King of Swords, very much like you, like I see them as almost like a lawyer. Sometimes when you're dealing with things, you can't bring emotions. You have to be, very like we're sticking with the facts, the truth. You may feel this certain way, and yes, we respect that you feel that way, but those feelings cannot come into the equation at this particular moment, because right now is a time for us to deal with just the facts, like what is going on. And sometimes in life you do have to do that. Sometimes you just need to like write all that shit down, like what is everything that's going on, what is fact and what is not fact. And then once you kind of get that written out, then you can maybe talk about, your emotions and how you feel about the different things. But sometimes you just need to like put it out on the table. What are the facts?
Yep.
Is this true? Is it not true? Is, whatever it may be. That strategic thinking, right? That and getting the truth out. That's what I love about the swords in general. Is that it's a suit, in my opinion, about truth, and
Mhm.
sometimes the truth hurts.
It
So you
does.
may see in the swords, the suit, that you'll see a lot of like painful looking cards, and
Hmm.
yeah, because the truth hurts, and sometimes you need to get to the truth in order for changes to be made, and
Sometimes
you can
getting
do
to the
that.
truth is what hurts.
Oh, listening to the truth
Yeah.
hurts too. Yeah. And you know what? And you have to do it. And the King of Swords is like, yeah, you need to hear the truth, right? You need to just hear it. I can't pretty it up. Sometimes you just can't pretty it up. And you
Hmm.
have to just tell it like it is, and be blunt. but hopefully in not such a painful way.
Well,
And then
yeah.
you can be like on the shadowy side, just too much of I don't really give a shit about you. This is the way it is, and deal with it. And I don't want to hear
Yeah.
anything about it. Like that would be more of a shadowy type of thing.
I like the Tarot of Mystical Moments deck too because they have female and male kings and a
Mm,
female and a male emperor, which is a really beautiful way to illustrate that kind of yin and yang aspect in the deck. I won't go too much into it because I don't want to take us down the posy path, but if you are interested in that, this is a really, really pretty deck and beautifully done. Anyway, um, so we are up to the King of Pentacles already, just kind of talking about who that would be. Um, I think this guy is just I I feel like he's so comfortable with who he is and what he's built, and he's not worried that anybody is going to take anything away from him. So he's not afraid to be generous and share, and not just with his money, but with what he's learned in life and
mm,
um safety. Like I see this as somebody who would be very good at saying, you look like you're struggling a little bit. Do you need to come in, sit down next to the fire and, you know, have a meal and get your bearings? Um and Yeah, that's my second favorite. That's the other kingdom I would like to live in is the Pentacles because the Queen is in her beautiful garden and everything is just lovely and green and verdant and everything's growing, and you know that everybody in that kingdom just has enough to eat and doesn't have to worry about where they're going to sleep at night and isn't afraid of the dark because they know there's nothing in there that can hurt them. And yeah, so that's my favorite.
I
My
love
second
that.
favorite,
And
my other favorite. They're all my favorite, but
which one is your least favorite?
Ah, I don't, I don't know. That's so hard to.
It's not an easy thing to.
But what I struggle with most, I think, is conveying how I feel to other people accurately without being an asshole. So I think um, the 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 Kingdom of Cups would be the most challenging for me to wake up
Mhm.
in. I think I could very much deal with the logic and um, thing in the Swords Kingdom, but I wouldn't want to live in either one all the time. I guess none of
Yeah.
them really. I mean, you have to have a mix of all of these things in your life to have a rich, full life. But I think for like vacation, I would go the Wands, and for like this is where I want to live, Pentacles, and then visit the other two, as I had to, I suppose, because you have to, in order to be masterful in the earthly world, you have to know how to keep your shit together. You can't be a complete,
Yeah.
can't be throwing temper tantrums and jumping up and down and demanding your own way all the time. Although, I mean, most of us can't. Most of us
It's too
aren't
funny.
allowed to do that. But um, yeah. So I think they all blend beautifully, like all of the talents and all of the gifts from all of the different elemental realms, if you want to call them that, um, blend beautifully to make a great life. That's
Yeah.
we've got the magician at the beginning of the deck with all of the tools. It's, you know, they use everything at the same time, not just one or two.
Yeah, it's not in isolation.
Mhm.
The King of Pentacles, that's my dad. He reminds me of the King of Pentacles. And even in this card, I mean, in the Light Seers deck, it's a much older gentleman and he's got gray white hair and he's sitting on a chair, but his hair is like long and a full beard. My dad does not have that. He doesn't have a beard and he doesn't have a full head of hair. But, he sits in this chair with his dog next to him, and it's like just a sense of comfort, groundedness, and like a sense of security, knowing that, I have provided for my family and I feel good about what I have done. I feel good about those that I've helped. I feel good about being this provider for my family and giving them, um, what they needed. Not necessarily always about what you wanted, what they wanted, but really what you need it in order to be happy. And one thing that I really love and appreciate about my dad is that he is not a materialistic person whatsoever. And to him, he does not need a lot of like fancy things in his home in order to be happy. To him, his biggest thing is give him food, give him wine, give him people, give him his family, sit down together at a big table, and he's like in heaven,
Mm,
and he is, very, very giving. If you need something, he is right there to help you out with very few questions, and very trusting, and this sense of, I have and I can give and I will do so. And if you can't give it back to me, it is what it is, and
yeah.
and just doing that. And I love that, and I try myself, to use him as an example, for me, and helping me understand that I don't need all of the fancy things around me, in order to be happy, that I can find, happiness and comfort and security in the other things that surround me. So I really like the King of Pentacles. And then you had brought up about the King of Pentacles being like the legacy that you live,
Yeah.
right? Or the yeah. And I was just listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about, um, have you ever heard of the exercise where you write your own obituary? And in that obituary, you are writing down what you hope other people will like, what they will see you as or remember you by. And
Mhm.
that kind of, yeah, that kind of reminds me of the King of Pentacles, maybe more than the other ones. But that sense of like, what am I doing here now, that is going to benefit others? And how am I going to, uh, I don't want to like make it seem like it's like a little bit conceited, like I want to know how people are going to view me, but like
How will
what
I be
people.
remembered? What do I
Yes.
leave behind? When people think of me after
Yes.
I'm gone, do they go, "Phew, she was an asshole," or
Yeah.
do they go, "Oh, she was, she was really nice. She, baked me cookies once," or whatever it was. And,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and that is also a really good way to, when you think about how you want to be perceived and remembered, it's a really good way to sort of zero in on the things that you could work on right now. Like if you want to be remembered as someone who is really supportive and um, somebody that you could come to, start researching, learning about how to hold space when people come to you with a problem,
Mhm.
how to wait and see if they want advice or if they just need you to listen. I've
Yeah.
done a lot of work on that because I used to give a lot of unsolicited advice until I heard a quote that said all unsolicited advice is criticism. And that is not
Mm.
what I ever meant to do ever. So I was like, oh, okay, somebody finally explained it to me in a way that I understand.
Yeah,
So,
that took me a while too to be able to, because it was, your intentions are good, like, oh, but I want to help them. Oh, I have some great advice I can give you. And oh, and then it does take away from the person's reason for wanting to sit there and talk to you and tell you their problems and
yeah.
stuff. And I remember somebody saying to me, when you're sitting down with somebody who, say, is very troubled, or somebody comes to you and wants to talk to you, one of the things to ask them is, okay, do you want me to just listen? Or are you telling me this because in the end you want some advice from me? So kind of
Hmm.
having that, in knowing how the intention for you going into the conversation can be very helpful for you, and for the other person. And I did take that advice, and it is very good advice.
It's
Very
very
good
good advice.
advice.
It's hard to
Yes.
remember sometimes, but
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, are we ready to? I think we pretty much covered quite a bit with the kings themselves. Do you want to pull some cards?
Oh, I guess, yeah. Did we say anything nasty? Not nasty, shadowy about the King of Pentacles? That would be somebody like very stingy and
Hmm.
sort of, yeah, I do have the money or the whatever you need, but you can't have it because it's all mine, and that's just too bad for you, I guess. That would be
Yeah.
the backwards sort of upside down King of Pentacles, and we see that playing out all over the place all the time.
No, we don't, Angie, do we?
I mean,
Yeah. I
if
think
you
the
don't
same
watch the
thing. I
news,
think I think the same thing, and even somebody who thinks that in order for people to see me as being a very what's the word? Like made person, like that's not the right word. To do well in my life, I need to show that with lots of material things, to show that I've made it in the world.
like
I need to
gold-plated
show
jets.
you. There you go, cars and fancy clothes, and I need
Mhm,
to put on this persona, um, of a person who has everything, and this
mhm.
shows you that, I've made it
And I have
in the
everything,
world.
and I don't want anybody else to have anything because I want it
Yeah.
all to be mine.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
we don't
lots
like
of
that
people
guy.
like that.
We don't like that
Lots of
guy.
people like that.
That
All
guy
right.
can go jump in a lake.
All right, we're gonna pull some cards. All right, how are we doing this, Angie?
Well, I was thinking, since kings have to deal with anything all the time, we could pull a situation. Like I'll say, okay, the King of Wands, I'm going to pull a card for the King of Wands to have to deal with.
Okay.
I pulled the Three of Cups. I think he would be fabulous in this situation. This is a party, everybody. Um, so that was kind of an easy one, wasn't it, though?
But
Um,
now all the kings or just one specific king?
well, I was going to pull a card for each king. I don't know. Maybe that's too much.
So what is that one for? Which
The
king?
ki- the King of Wands. I pulled Three of Cups for the King of
Oh,
Wands
okay.
to
I
deal with.
must have missed what you
I
said
think
before.
that would be
Okay, I
pretty
got it.
easy for him because it's like a party, right? The Three of Cups is a party. Everybody's having a good time. King of Wands will be like, yeah, this is great. So that was a very interesting reading. Your turn.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let's see. We're doing the King of Wands. All
Or you can
right.
do a
King.
different king and then I'll do
No,
the
no,
last.
I'm gonna
Okay.
go with what you're doing. King of
All
Wands,
right.
King of Wands, King of Wands. What do we have here? Oh, we have the Empress. Um, but I like it because, the Empress is that feminine principle, right? And the King of Wands has that masculine principle of that masculine energy, and you put the two together, so you're creating something, and then that king energy is now putting it out into the world, and it makes like a good match, a good pair.
I think so too.
And he's also, I think, too, I also see the kings as like a protector. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So this is my creation. This is what, I'm giving birth to, and now I want to protect it. I want to nurture it, and I want to make sure that I bring it to its full potential.
Fabulous. All right. Let's see what we can do for the King of Cups here. Okay. I pulled the Chariot for the King of Cups. And I think the
Mm.
King of Cups, the Chariot is about following basically your life's path, your life path. And the Chariot is sort of like this bulky thing. It doesn't turn on a dime. So once you pick a direction, you kind of need to stick with it for a little while before you really know how it might turn out. And I think the King of Cups would tell the charioteer here to look deep within themselves, think about more about how they feel about their potential path, and not so much about how other people are going to feel about their potential paths. More
Hmm.
where are you right now? There, this chariot is a very fancy thing. It probably doesn't belong all to this guy. He's probably renting it from Avis or something. And so, so he's got to take care of the chariot, but he's also got to make sure that he doesn't take it somewhere that it doesn't belong. Like you don't want to rent um, a snazzy Jaguar and take it off-roading. Or maybe you do. Maybe you have so much money that that is a good idea to you. But, you know, you want the right thing for the right job. So you want to get really clear about what it is you're trying to do before you set out on wherever you're going to go. That's what the King of Cups would say, I think.
Yeah, I like that. And isn't the chariot also a water, um,
I believe it
the
is.
element of water? Oh, I like that. I like that when you pulled it at first, I was like, oh, that's a really good pair. Like
Mhm.
that's a nice match. Okay, so for the King of Cups, I pulled the Six of Wands. Um,
Mm.
which I really liked because you can and then this card, it's a woman who's standing on a stage. She's got her arms up and she's got a whole audience in front of her, and they, maybe she just finished performing and they're all like clapping and it's like a big celebration, and it's wonderful to be in that position where people are maybe admiring you or saying, wow, you did such a great job. And then the King of Cups comes in and he's like, okay, don't let all of that go to your head. You know what I mean? Like, let's just like temper those thoughts you might have, like, oh, I'm wonderful, I'm great, everybody loves me, I can do whatever I want. And let's just work on, keeping it real, and being appreciative of your audience, and how people are congratulating you or celebrating you, but be kind of humble about it. Be a little bit modest about it and not let it change who you are on the inside. Being very conscious of that because, like fame can change you. Being very celebrated can change you. And it's just kind of making sure you're keeping, in touch with what's going on inside. Yeah, I like those two together.
Yeah, I do too. That was great. Thank you. All right. King of Swords. Oh, I pulled the Queen of Cups for the King of Swords. I don't know how,
Ooh.
I mean, okay, well, I don't know. I think these two would be like a very powerful couple of people, right? You've got this woman who is like aware of everyone else's emotions, but also completely aware that the only ones she can do anything about are the ones in her own cup, hers, her
Hmm.
emotions. And she's with this guy who has to understand that people have emotions and that they are very important. But when you come from at everything from a place of logic, it's sometimes it is easy to forget that sometimes the emotions are the most important thing in the room.
Hmm.
They are the thing that needs to have the most protection, the most defense, the most um, room made for them. So I think these two would be very, very good at tempering each other's sort of impulses maybe to go too far in the other direction. Because on the other
Hmm.
side of the coin, if you only use your emotions, I mean, wow, that would be a mess, right? If you only ruled from a place of this is what I want and this is how I feel, that could certainly screw some things up, couldn't it? We
Oh,
wouldn't
I
know.
think so.
Yeah, we wouldn't know though. Not here, not in 2025 in America. We don't know anything about over emotional leaders.
It also made me think of, sometimes like you remember that book, Men Are from Mars and Women Are from Venus?
Oh yeah.
And it was a book that kind of just, I mean, I didn't read like all of it. I must have read, this was like a long, long time ago,
Hmm.
but it kind of reminded me of this relationship where, there was more like the father or was more of that masculine energy, and the woman had more of that, feminine energy, and how, sometimes in a relationship, I'm not even going to say man or woman, I'm going to say one of them, one of the partnership has like is just more in tune with their emotions and feelings and likes to talk things through, and they like to, okay, I have this issue, let's talk it out. This is how I'm feeling, and I want you to validate how I'm feeling. And I want you to hear me, I want you to listen. And then you have the other partner that is just more like, I don't understand it. I don't
Yeah.
understand what you're whining about or complaining about, or I don't understand why you have to feel that way. Just do it, or just
Or don't
don't
do it
think
or
of it that way.
whatever. I don't
Yeah,
care.
so it's kind of
Yeah.
like you can have that extreme,
Hmm.
and that's what it kind of reminded
Yeah,
me
their
of.
fights would be pretty, oh, I wouldn't want to be around for one of those. That would be yuck. Mm.
Mhm.
Lots of
Absolutely.
screaming,
Oh.
lots of screaming, lots of crying.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I got the Nine of Cups for the King of Swords. So the Nine of Cups. So the Nine of Cups for me is more like, um I my cups are full, right? Like I am in a place where I'm very content and I'm happy and I'm feeling good and I'm joyful, and just things are really good right now. And I think the King of Swords, maybe it's like the opposite of the Wands and the King of Cups, where it's now the king is coming in, and he's like, okay, so the facts here. Things are going great, but we still have things that we need to take care of. You know what I mean? Like things are going really great right now. You've accomplished certain things, but we got to keep moving on, right? You can't like just stay, or even the idea how things are always changing, so you're not always going to be in a place of joy and laughter and fulfillment, because that's not life.
Yeah.
And maybe the King of Swords comes in and he's like, okay, that it's going to fade a little bit, and then you have to start dealing with the reality of things, and you have to take things under control, and you have to work on this, and putting more like structure into, if that makes sense, because it's
I
not
think
making
like
sense in my head
maintenance,
as I'm saying it.
like you feel great right now, everything is going well, you have, attained these goals and you're feeling very satisfied. So let's take steps now to make sure that we
Mm,
protect it, that we grow our investments, or that we you know, maintain what we have. Like kind of maybe buy some insurance just in case something happens, you know. Um to be enjoy, definitely enjoy what you've built, what you have, but also um understand that you can't just like stop doing things now. Like if you just sit
yes.
there for the rest of your life, eventually all of the things you have that you're so happy with right now are going to fall apart, and then you're just going to be,
Yes. I
yeah.
think that's it perfect. Like you can't forget everything else that you have going on in your life because, of this one period or moment where things have been like great. We just don't want to forget about, the reality of life. Like I think that, and the king reminds me too, like the King of Swords reminds me of, reality, the reality in life, like what's going on. We got other things to take care of. Don't forget those, right? Yeah, just keep
Right.
those in the back of your mind and know that we're going to have to attend to them
Or even
at some
maybe,
point.
because the Nine of Cups in the darker aspect could be somebody who's sort of hoarding, or like being very smug
Mm,
because they think they've got one over. And that could be, the King of Swords coming to him and being like, listen, pal, you know, you need to grow up a little bit, maybe, and um, not not hoard. Like maybe if he's trying to hoard stuff or things, the
yeah.
King of Swords could say, I understand that you're emotionally attached to each and every one of these
Mhm.
things, but it doesn't make sense to have all of them right now.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, so what do
right.
we have for the King of Pentacles? I don't know why I don't know. Got like a weird little accent there for a second. Okay, I got, excuse me, my allergies are terrible. I pulled the two of wands for the King
Hmm.
of Pentacles. Let me think. So we've got this in the Rider-Waite deck. The king is sitting on his throne and he's looking at his pentacle. And in the wands, this person is standing, it looks like, on the turrets of their home. And they have a wand in one hand and a wand attached to the house behind them. Uh, and in their other hand, they have like this globe that they're looking into. And it's sort of like, what do I do? And I think that the King of Pentacles would be able to advise this person who's at the very beginning of their journey, maybe which
Mm,
steps to take first, like which things to think of first, where to put their first investment, their first bit of energy or attention or focus toward what they want to build. Because this card, the Two of Wands, always makes me think of somebody who has just this great idea. Maybe they've got the whole world in their palm, right? They've got that globe in their
mm,
hand. So they have this great idea, but they're not really stuck at home. Like they can leave, they're allowed to leave. They've got everything they need to leave to make a go of it, but maybe they just don't know what to do first. And I
yeah.
think that a King of Pentacles type of advisor in a situation like that would be so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like a teacher or a guide, right? Because they also look at the kings as or maybe it's not all the kings. Is it just the one king that is kind of looked at as like a teacher or a mentor? Is
I
that the
think
King
that
of
they're
Pentacles?
all kind of
They're
viewed as like
all.
masters of their pentacles would be earthly resources,
Yeah.
including energy and attention and focus and applied work over a long period of time, because that's usually what it takes to build something from something big from something small, and with the wands, he's kind of the master of creative spark and passion and very um the same thing though, not just the passion, the fun part, but the work over a long period of time. So I think it's they all represent like the mastery of this element, the mastery of what they rule over through experience and hard work. It's not just um because we got to remember we don't do royalty here. Nobody is
Yeah.
born a king or a queen. We are all the kings and queens of our own lives. So
Yes.
um that energy is the energy that you have when you have gotten some success, and now that you have the success, you can maybe start to ask yourself, why? What am I fighting for? What am I protecting? What am I creating? What am I feeling? What am I trying to accomplish with
Yeah.
what I'm really good at? I hope
Mm,
that
I
makes
like
sense.
that very much. I like that very much. I pulled my first reversal. I don't think I've
Oh,
ever pulled a reversal on
I
this
don't think so
podcast.
either.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not like, I always check my cards beforehand to make sure they're
Hmm.
always upright. Anyway, I got the Knight of Wands. And I guess the first thing that I thought of is just like when we talked about like some of the more shadowy sides of, say, the wands could be like carelessness, like going towards something so quickly that you're not really taking the time to like plan things out. Like you have this goal, you're going for it, and you're like taking this action, and you're just not being very conscious of the kinds of action that you're taking and maybe what's coming about of those actions, and you start to just like burn out, and the King of Pentacles comes in, and that energy is more of like, whoa, like stop, chill out. Let's go a little bit slower. You're burning yourself out. You're not going to have enough fire to keep yourself going. Sometimes a little slower and steady is the best way to do it. So let's just stop where we are. Let's just, regroup. Let's see where we are and start thinking about some of our next step. We want to keep ourselves grounded, right? We want to make sure that we're in touch with where we are at the moment, and what you're doing, and that you understand what your goal is, maybe, and how you're going to achieve that goal, like that energy and that drive and that motivation to get yourself there is so important, but then so is the other part of it of planning it out and what is it that I have to do? And once you kind of do that, then you can start to take this action and kind of like move and maybe move a little faster than maybe say the Knight of Pentacles might move. But still, you can keep going as long as you are aware of the things that are occurring as you're moving along.
Yeah, it's
Um,
kind of follow your heart, but take your brain with you. Don't
yeah.
forget, don't forget to take your brain with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this was a lot of fun. I really like
Yeah,
um having the king's reign and what would the king say in a situation
yeah.
like this.
I think this
I
is a really
really
fun way to get to know the court cards.
yeah,
Having, thinking, what would they do? What would they tell me to do in the situation? Or um, if I was them, what would I do with that situation? Even better, I think.
yeah, I like that. I always had difficulties with the kings per se. But doing, like my research and doing this podcast has given me just a little bit more comfort, I guess, with them and reading them. And I think it's also given me more of a direction on how I want to use them. Because if you read, and our listeners will know that when you read books on the court cards, like there are many different ways that people will use the court cards in their type of readings. And I used to get very caught up in, oh my God, I got to know all the ways. And no, just like in tarot, like you have your own style of reading, and you need to like stick to what means the most to you. And for me, it's a lot of just like energies, like how are the energies working together, and how can we um work with those energies. And me, I guess more of my style is more of like a spiritual thing, only because I've been, studying tarot now for 6 or 7 years, and I started it for like a spiritual journey, like my sober
Mhm.
journey. And that's kind of how I've been using them. And that's my experience with them. So just know when you get to the court cards that you have to work with them. It's good to know lots of different ways, but you have to work with them in a way that resonates with you. And that's my opinion anyway.
I agree. I think learning how these things show up in your life will inform how you can interpret them for other people. When I give a reading for someone else, I usually start with the a, a idea that if I pull a court card, it's some aspect of them. But sometimes you pull a court card for somebody and you start explaining, what it means, and this is how I would introduce this person to this person. And sometimes they'll go, oh, that reminds me of my dad or my
Mhm.
cousin or my boss. And then okay, all right, cool. It does represent someone in your life, but how am I going to know that? I don't know other people in your life, is how I feel. I know that some
Yeah.
readers are very comfortable with saying, this is a person you work with, but I've never, that's not how the court cards have ever really kind of made themselves useful to me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just, people have different ways of reading the cards. And I think that's
Hmm.
part of being a tarot reader is you just, finding what works for you and what makes you feel comfortable when you're sitting with another person and reading for them.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah. Oh, Angie, this was wonderful. I do miss Linda, but I know she is having the time of her life at the moment.
She is
And
having so much fun. I can't wait to hear
yeah.
all of her adventures when she gets back. She is in Barcelona right now, everybody. So,
I am jelly, so
yeah.
jelly, but I am so happy for her.
Me
What
too.
a beautiful experience for her.
Hmm.
All righty. Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us today, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.